Hi, it's Paul Kelly here from the Enable Head Nerd team, and in all my years here at Enable, one of the most common questions I'm asked is how do you properly set up and configure patch management in N-Central. So in this video, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to walk you through the patch setup wizard to show you all components and how you can properly configure patch management in your environment as well. In your N-Central environment, we're going to start off by coming down to configuration, click on patch management, and here you'll find the patch setup wizard. Now we're going to walk this process through in 3 steps. We're going to first talk about the profile configuration. We're then going to talk about our maintenance windows, and finally we'll tie all this together with our rules as well. So in this first part of this 3-part video, we're going to look at the profile configuration. Now, by default, we have a default profile available to you, and we have the option to create a new one as well. Now, this is a common mistake partners make in thinking that the profile has to be specific to a customer or a group of customers as such. Typically speaking, you don't need more than 2 or 3 different profiles to cover all your devices, and profiles are targeted more at your device classes than your customers as such, and that will become apparent as we go through the different options as well. So we're going to go first of all and create a profile for workstations and laptops, which we're going to use as our example today. So we're going to call this workstations and laptops. And you can put a description in here as to what this profile is designed to do as such. Now, the first option in the profile itself is for pop-up messages to appear. Now, what pop-up messages do is in advance of a scheduled installation window, a notification can appear on an end user device to say that patching is due to take place in X amount of minutes time. Would you like to install these patches now instead? Now, the whole idea of patch management is that it's designed to be silent and non-intrusive. So for me, there's really no value in having these pop-ups appear on our end user's device such. If we don't notify them at all, they probably won't even know when patching is taking place on their end user devices. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this option off. Now, you may have certain circumstances where you want to have this enabled, but you might take that out of your default profile and just target specific devices where that requirement is needed as well. The next option is to communicate externally for updates. Now, in the past, obviously, a lot of devices were situated within an office where they had direct access to a probe. But in recent years, we've seen obviously a rise of people working remotely, people working in a hybrid environment where they're working from home some days and working in the office other days. And devices now are a lot more fluid in terms of where they're located as well. So if a device does not have direct access to a probe, it's important that it can still go and get the updates as such. So we always recommend you have this option enabled. If you are not using probes anymore and you're moving to more of a cloud-first environment, then you can set this option to 0, which means that devices will always go directly to the internet to get the patches that they require. But I normally set this to about 5 minutes as such. If the probe's not available after 5 minutes, it's not going to be available after 60 minutes, so we don't need to wait that long as well. The next option is something that I would configure for workstations and laptops, but probably not for servers, and that's to run mist install window when devices come back online. So if for whatever reason the device is offline during an installation window, we can then initiate the installation of those patches when the device comes back online again. Typically, we might have asked someone to leave their machine on and patch those devices then, and they didn't do so, so the device comes back on the next day. Now, a lot of the times in mornings, users are full of the vigors of life and they're ready to do a whole load of work, so they open up their machine, they load up a whole load of different applications, and we probably don't want to be adding patching to the equation just yet as well. So we can actually give them a grace period of time, let's say maybe 45 minutes after the device comes back online, then we can initiate the patching. And remember, the patching process is going to be silent and non-intrusive as such, so the end user is not going to notice it. So no harm, just leave it a few minutes, let the end user get up to speed, let them get their applications open, and then we can initiate the patch installation window then as well. Now, the next option is Windows Update Access. You have 2 options here, even though there's 3 available from the drop-down menu. The limited to administrators and applications only no longer is supported by Microsoft. They made a change in their OS recently. Now, this may still work on legacy OS applications that you have within your N-Central environment as such, but for new OS versions, this is no longer supported. So you got 2 options to consider. You can either allow users and accounts and applications full access to Windows Update, or you can restrict it to N-Central activity only. Now, as someone who would be charged with being responsible for my customers' devices, choosing what patches I want to install and when I want to install them, I'm not really keen on the idea of giving end users free rein on the ability to install their own patches in the environment as well, particularly if these patches have not been tested or could impact other applications within their environment as such. So I recommend you set this to restricted to N-Central activity only. Again, if you have certain devices where you trust the end user and you want to give them that access, create a separate profile that allows them to have that access and assign that to their device as well. In terms of the patch detection method, this is always going to be Windows Update access, unless you have very restricted devices where they don't have direct access to the internet. If that is the case, provided you have a probe device within the environment, you can use the probe device to query what patches are required by those devices and then feed that information using the offline updates and a secure network option. But generally speaking, you're going to use the Windows Update as your default profile as well. In terms of your patch management engine, by default we will use the GA version, and this is what I would select in here as well. Again, if you have like maybe a pilot group of devices and you want to test new functionality before it becomes available, you can create a profile that uses the RC version. But generally speaking, for our large cohort of our main users, we're going to use the GA version as well. And finally, wake device from a sleep or hibernation state. This is the other difference that we'd have between servers and workstations. Laptops, we're not going to have hibernating servers, so we don't necessarily need to have this feature enabled or not. But if we want to wake workstations and laptops in a hibernation state up so that they can be patched at the time that we've configured the installation window, you're going to have this option enabled as well. So that's the first step in configuring the patch setup wizard in N-Central. It's defining the profile if you haven't done so already, and if you have obviously defined the profile, you can simply select it from the drop down and click on next to continue. In the next part of this training video, we're going to look at defining the maintenance windows and how they can be configured to best deploy patching within your N-Central environment as well. So now that we've configured our patch configuration profile, the next step is to define the maintenance windows which will actually control the actions around patch management. And there are 4 key maintenance windows that we use when it comes to patch management. There's our detection window, our pre-download window, our installation window, and our reboot window as well. So we're going to go back into our N-Central environment, and in our patch setup wizard, we're going to click on next. In terms of our patch detection window, I recommend you run a detection at least twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And this just ensures that you catch all the devices in an environment to ensure that you have the latest information detected about these patches as well. Like everything in N-Central, I'm going to use good naming convention. So not only do I understand what this task is designed for, but any of my colleagues that might be looking at N-Central can clearly see what this is designed to do as well. The maintenance window is going to last for 60 minutes, which means that if the device comes online anytime between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. or 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., which is a 60-minute period, the device is going to check in, see that it's in the maintenance window, and trigger the maintenance window as such. Again, common misnomer here is people think that the maintenance window controls how long the action takes place. That is not the case as such. Typically, if devices are online, all the maintenance windows will start when the device when it's triggered to start as well, in which case it'll be 10 and 3 p.m. as well. So we're going to remove the defaults here, and we're going to put in our 10 a.m. and we're going to add this across here as such, and we're going to put in 1500 hours as our 3 p.m. as well. Now you do have the option to run this hourly or run this monthly, but for me hourly is too aggressive and monthly is too passive, so having it done at least once, if not twice a day, is the perfect scenario as well. And we can run this every day of the week, every week of the month, every month of the year. Remember, if the maintenance window is missed, it's just simply will skip that particular maintenance window and run when it's scheduled to run again. So now that we have our detection window defined, we're going to click on next, and we get our pre-download window. Now, pre-download window should be done after the detection window is run, but in advance of an installation window. So if we're doing a detection window at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., probably want to run our download window maybe at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. on these devices as well. It's important to note, for a detection window to run, the end user's device must be online, not the probe. Even though the probe will do the downloading where applicable, if the device is offline when the pre-download window is set to trigger, it will not run as such. So you need to make sure that you're running the pre-download window when the device is online. Again, a lot of people run this out of hours thinking that they're going to save on bandwidth, for example. That won't work in this scenario as well. So we're going to do this again daily, and we're going to do 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. Again, we're going to let this window run for a 60-minute period, and doesn't mean that it's going to actually download for 60 minutes. It's just when the window can initiate. And we're going to clear the defaults, and we're going to add 11 a.m. in here and 1600 hours for 4 p.m. as well. And again, we'll run this every week, every day of the week, every week, month, every month of the year. So the detection and pre-download windows, very easy to configure, something that you should be doing on a daily basis. Now next we get to the installation window, and this is where you might have to have a bit more flexibility in terms of your configuration as such. You probably won't have a one size fits all for all your end user devices, but you can certainly run through this patch setup wizard multiple times and create a couple of different options for you as well. But we're going to do this twice a week. Now, I would recommend at a very minimum this day and age, patching devices once a week. But now, with the threats that's out there and how often threats and vulnerabilities are exposed and how quickly they are exposed, we need to be bringing devices up as soon as possible as well. So to ensure your device is being patched regularly, recommend 2 installation windows within that weekly period as well. So I'm going to do it on Tuesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. So I'm going to pop in patch installation Tuesday and Friday at 5 p.m. Now, in terms of what classifications of patch you want to install, all the classifications you see here pertain to Microsoft with the exception of third party. So all third party products are bundled onto that third party group as well. So if you want to ensure all patches are installed within a particular maintenance window, you can move everything over to the right hand side. Now, this doesn't mean that every patch available will be installed within this maintenance window. Those patches still have to be improved within your environment as well. So if you move everything to the right hand side, but you never actually approve any patches, this installation window won't actually do anything for you as well. One common thing I see here a lot of partners doing, I think it's a great idea, is they segment out those big Windows 10 and Windows 11 feature upgrades from their normal patching process as well. So if you want to ensure that you're not doing those biannual upgrades on a weekly basis in your environment, maybe you're going to create a separate process that allows you to target those instead. You simply remove the upgrades from this installation window, and that means that even if they're approved to install in a device, this particular maintenance window will not install those patches as well. Now again, you can choose how long you want the maintenance window to last for. Again, this is not how long it's going to take to install the patches, but when the installation window can start as well. So again, I like to keep this universal. I'm going to set this to 60 minutes as such, which means if the device is online between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m, the patching installation will be initiated at that time as well. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to clear the defaults, and we're going to put in 1700 hours here. We're going to add that across. And then because we're only doing this on Tuesdays and Fridays, we're going to select those days from the selected days of the week as well. Finally, we get to configure our reboot maintenance window. Now it's important to note that the reboot window will only trigger if a patch installs that requires a reboot as such. So if we install 50 patches and none of them require a reboot window, this window will simply be skipped. But generally speaking, from time to time, most installation windows, you're going to have at least one patch that requires a reboot as such. So it's important that you configure this as well. And bearing in mind that a reboot might be required before other patches can be detected and deployed onto your devices. So this is something that has to be done as well. Some partners like to separate the reboot windows out from the installation windows, as this is the moment that the disruption is going to take place on the end user's device. I like to tie it together in one rule, so we can run the reboot after we've done our installation as well. So if we're doing installations on Tuesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m, maybe we want to trigger the reboot maybe at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays and Fridays as well. So again, we'll name it accordingly, Tuesdays and Friday at 7 p.m. Now, when it comes to your reboot, you have a couple of different options here. You can force the user to reboot within the maintenance window, which is the default option. You also have to allow the users to postpone beyond the maintenance window, so they get a little pop-up notification and they can keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. You can force users to reboot without notification, which probably you don't want to do as such, and I can't see any good reason why you'd configure this as well. At least you want to give them some notice so they can save their work. And you also have the option to reboot only if accepted by the user. So the reboot will never happen unless the end user says it's okay to do so. Now, again, my recommended option here is you force the user to reboot within the maintenance window. They will get pop-up notifications, they will get countdown timers, they will be able to postpone this within a certain period of time, but they will have to do it eventually within the reboot window, and that ensures the device is rebooted and the patches are properly deployed to the devices as well. Now, you can customize the message and who it's from. So if you want to have a more personal touch on the notifications that appear on your end user devices, you can populate that in here as well. You can also place the device in downtime during reboot. Now, this is particularly important if you are targeting servers. Obviously, in this example, we are targeting workstations and laptops, and we expect them to be off periodically. So we're not going to get a whole load of notifications out of our End Central environment. But if we were targeting servers here, it's important that you place the device in downtime during reboot, because we all know that patch reboots on servers can take longer than a normal reboot as such, and as a result this may trigger alerts and notifications out of your End Central server. By putting a device in downtime during the reboot window, it will suppress those notifications for a period of time, and you can force the device then out of that downtime maintenance window with the longest time you're comfortable waiting for a device reboot as such. So, I suppose I'd be getting concerned after 30 minutes if the device is not back up online, so I'm going to force my device out of downtime as well. So that's what I configure in a server environment, but as this is workstations, we don't need to worry about that as well. Finally, when it comes to the reboot schedule, we said we're going to do this on Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m. So again, we only want the window to trigger between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. So we're going to set this as a 60-minute maintenance window. We're going to choose to clear the default times here again, and we're going to put in 1900 hours. We're going to add that across in here as such, and again we're going to select the days of the week that we want this to happen as such as well. So we have defined our detection, pre-download, installation and reboot windows in this particular section as well. We're going to tie all this together next in the rules section. So come back and we'll show you how to do that in the next portion of this video as well. So far we have configured our patch profile as well as defined our maintenance windows using the patch setup wizard, and we're going to complete this process now by combining all those together and formulating a rule. So back in our patch setup wizard, after defining your reboot maintenance window, we're going to click on next. We're going to get to our rule configuration. Now again, we want to use good naming convention. So we're going to call this patch workstations and laptops. And then we're going to say Tuesdays and Friday at 5 p.m. So typically I'll include the time that the installation is due to take place in the rule, and again you can put a more descriptive information about the rule in here as well. Now in terms of the rule, you have a couple of options. You can manage Windows patching, so by having this option selected we're going to be able to install all our Microsoft patches, and if we want to enable third-party patching we can do this as well. If you have a situation where you're using Intune for example to manage patching on your Windows devices, but you want to leverage End Central for third-party patching, you can just disable the manage Windows patching and create a rule that just does third-party patching for you as well. But generally we're going to handle everything via End Central here as well. Now when it comes to targeting devices, rules work by targeting devices via filters and also by having customers selected as well. Now I could come in here and choose my workstation, Windows and laptops filter for example, and I can apply this to all my existing customers, and I can propagate to all new customers and sites as well. Or maybe I'm going to use custom properties and custom filters to target devices as such. So for now, I might remove the filter, which means no devices will be targeted by this rule, but it will be applicable to all the customers and future customers within my environment as well. So we're going to go ahead and click on next. Here we have a summary of what we've created, so we can see the different maintenance windows that we've defined, and by obviously using good naming convention we can see what each one is designed to do, and we get a name of a rule. Now if we make any mistakes along the way we can always go back through the wizard and modify these as well, but once we're satisfied that we have completed everything successfully, we're going to go ahead and click on finish as such. Now we can open and edit the rule immediately, or we can simply close the wizard and it's going to return us to the patch management homepage. Now once you've run this wizard for the first time, on your patch enabled rules tab under the patch management homepage, you're going to see that rule defined in here, and you're going to see how many devices are currently targeted by this rule as well. And right now it's set to 0 because we didn't obviously include a filter. So while we have customers selected, we didn't have filters selected as such. So once you've created these rules, and you might run through this wizard 3 or 4 times to actually generate different rules for different groups of devices. If you want to edit these rules at any stage, you're going to go to configuration, monitoring and rules. Here you'll find all your patch rules. You can use the filter up the top to find your patch rule. So we can go ahead and click into the rule here again. And in here then, this is where we'll be able to actually add a filter. Under network device configuration options, you can see we have patch management here. So if I maybe didn't enable third-party patching and I want to enable third-party patching now, I can do so here as well. Under my maintenance windows, I can see all the different maintenance windows that I've defined. And maybe I want to add an additional maintenance window that does the feature upgrades, maybe on a monthly basis. You can add that into your rule as well. But in order for the rules to work, you're going to use a custom filter or an existing filter. So you can use something like custom properties in order to select the devices, and that gives you very granular control as to where these rules will target what devices in your N-Central environment as well. So guys, that's how you use the N-Central Patch Setup Wizard to configure patching within your N-Central environment. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll see you on the next one.